I have some bad news. I'm here today to again tell you how you are a bad hockey fan. They're gonna love that. So I know it's been a while. I've been functionally homeless for the last 6 months, not as in on the streets, but living in Airbnbs when I'm not aboard the oil tankers I work on. But right now, I'm in the foothills of the Italian Alps watching 4th tier under-18 junior hockey, and I want to answer why. See, look. Il Grande Hockey Mondiale. Division 2, Group A. This tournament features 6 teams, about 135 players, who have almost zero chance of making it to the NHL. And the general feeling for many hockey fans is that the hockey world begins and ends with the NHL. And I'm here to say, no, that's not true. So right, I'm here in the beautiful northern Italian town of Asiago, in the foothills of the Italian Alps, with a population of about 7,000. If you happen to have watched my video about European hockey jerseys, you'd know Asiago Hockey 1935 featured pretty predominantly in that video. And now look, I have one of their beautiful ugly jerseys, which I'm pointing at, but I realise is not in the shot. Hang on. Now look, I have one of their brilliantly ugly jerseys to add to my collection. One of the most amazing things following various tiers of British hockey is the odd European towns and villages that I would have never visited were it not for hockey, be it weird industrial towns in Romania and Poland to hockey towns in places like Denmark, and then these small little alpine villages. This tournament is being held in one of European hockey's most iconic venues, the Parla Hodegaard, or Stadio del Ghiaccio, or Stadio del Ghiaccio Parla Hodegaard, whichever I pronounced worse. The venue is an absolute beaut. It's a wooden framed kind of alpine construction with big windows either end. The arena was built in 1977 as an open rink, outdoor rink, and a sort of alpine roof was added in the 90s. It seats about 2,000 with an awesome oldie worldy bar at one goal end. And it's a venue I've wanted to visit for a while. It's predominantly actually why I decided to come to this tournament. In fact, I've travelled all over the world for international hockey. Right now I'm repping the Mongolian hockey jersey in the back there. I have a huge love for Asian ice hockey. I spend a lot of time out in Asia and international ice hockey in general. But I think the average NHL fan from like North America will be like, why? This isn't the NHL, and in fact it's pretty far from it. This is 4th tier under-18s hockey. But the dream doesn't end at the NHL, right? We're at this time of year when dogshit social media publications will highlight every terrible result for every new hockey nation making their first forays into international competition to basically point and laugh at, and I'm going to be honest, it kind of pisses me off. Last year's lambs to the slaughter were the South African women's under-18 team who were making their international debut, and they ended up with a goal difference of -84 after a 5-game spread with only 1 goal scored. And the other, as is in my thumbnail, was the Kuwait under-18 men's team who lost 57-0 to Thailand with only 1 shot for and 122 against.
These are youngsters that don't have the infrastructure and coaching we have even in the UK, where hockey is a tiny minority sport, let alone Canada. Yet you will always get these types of comments. Can you imagine if they played Canada? It would be like 100-0. But I have to ask, what would be the point? Do you understand that these might be the only 18 to 20 players in that age range in their whole country able to represent that country? That just getting onto the ice was their victory? Do you have any idea how expensive it is just to get your team to an international tournament, even when you're representing an age niche within a sport that's already massively niche within your own country?
It's pretty amazing for not just the athletes, but also the sport to get these kids on the ice. And if you're sat there in your PJs and haven't even brushed your teeth for the day and you're shitting on the Kuwaiti lads for losing 57-0 to Thailand, you're not the winner. You can argue you're the better player and they're worse than my beer league hockey team. But there is no infrastructure for the game in these countries, and the sport doesn't grow if there isn't people who have the balls to have their ass handed to them to learn and develop the sport as forerunners for their nation. And ultimately, Canadian, American, Russian or Swedish fans will never realise how lucky they were to be born where they were born, and will never realise how hard it is to get a team from a non-hockey nation on the ice to begin with, to build a national programme when everyone is trying to resist you and withhold funding. And if you think you were amazing in your beer league, and you think you could play on the Kuwaiti team or the Mongolian team or the South African team, remember you grew up in a nation where the infrastructure was there for you to be the next Gretzky or Austin Matthews or Peter Forsberg. That's not a commodity a Kuwaiti kid playing hockey has. And ultimately, what is the point of shitting on these kids? Do you think it makes Canadian hockey stronger? At a time that more and more North Americans turn towards soccer because it's affordable, do you think belittling kids trying to create a culture for hockey in their own nation warrants mockery? Do you think that makes hockey stronger? Because to me, it makes hockey seem weaker, and the Boo Boys kind of pathetic. You as a Canadian or an American or Scandinavian may look at a 57-0 loss to Thailand as pathetic. Ultimately, you probably didn't realise they played hockey in Thailand, but actually they've been playing hockey in Thailand for almost 4 decades. That's 4 decades of having drills and systems taught into your game from a young age. That was something that the Kuwaiti lads didn't have. And while the Thai hockey infrastructure is small, the Kuwaiti one is, well, it's pretty much was the lads that were on the ice that day. And to me, that's pretty fucking cool. I'd dine off representing my nation until the end of time, even if I was just representing Nauru in curling and was playing all 4 positions. And by the way, if anyone from the Nauruan IOC is watching, I am available. But I'm here watching the lads from Great Britain, Italy, Netherlands, China, Romania and Croatia, and the odds of any of them getting drafted into the NHL is vanishingly small. Only a handful of players have ever been drafted from these nations, and only a couple have ever played an NHL game. So, should they give up? Many of them will go on to have lucrative careers in Europe and in Asia, and if you're a North American or a Scandinavian watching this with a bit of Monster energy drink or ramen noodles down your top, would you prefer playing professional hockey in Europe? And hey, if you feel like I'm being pompous or preachy, bear in mind I'd have loved to have played pro hockey in Europe, but I wasn't good enough. These IIHF week-long tournaments are awesome. I love being in these little hockey towns where everyone cares about the sport and you get to meet hockey fans from all around the world. It's not something you will generally experience in North America, and definitely not the kind of experience you have at an NHL game. These last 3 weeks, I have seen a frankly disgusting amount of ice hockey. But these 2 tournaments, 30 games, have cost me a total of nothing in Italy, and over in Romania it cost me 400 lei, which is about 60 or 70 British pounds. So, as most of my audience aren't British, that's about $100. That's $100 for 30 games. So if you ever happen to be near an IIHF tournament because of work or leisure, I cannot stress how cool these tournaments are to visit, and I cannot stress that the hockey world is much better for having these tournaments, having these nations participate, and being broader than just the NHL. Now, I know how the internet works. There's going to be the types of comments that defend these media articles and the derisive attitudes towards new hockey nations. Or why would you want to watch shit hockey? And firstly, the 3-3 tie yesterday between China and Croatia that went to a shootout at this tournament was a pulsating contest. But my question is, why are these the only articles that you ever seem to see in North America about international hockey? NHL fans tend to be like Premier League fans in that they believe anything below that level is not worth watching. And look, I'm not going to sit here and argue watching a team getting shelled 57-0 is a great watch. It isn't. Those types of results are fairly rare, and their learning experiences for those teams. Those types of results and the amount of media coverage around them tends to create this distorted idea that all international hockey is bad. It's true that at the junior ranks level, the spread of development is pretty broad, and the bottom teams at junior tournaments, even at the junior worlds, tends to lead to some lopsided results. We've all seen Kazakhstan losing 10-0 to Canada. Hockey isn't a sport with the international popularity that soccer has, so that's why a team ranked 70th in the world in soccer can feasibly beat a team in the top 10, while a team ranked 20th in hockey will likely be roundly beaten by a top 10 international hockey team. There was a time in the 90s where George Weah was one of the best footballers in the world, despite playing for and being from Liberia, a nation that has never qualified for a World Cup. That would be a bit like in hockey if a guy came out of Turkmenistan and was the best player in the world. It's just not going to happen. One of the most prevalent questions that tends to get asked when it comes to the game against Thailand is, why are Kuwait allowed to compete at that level? But the answer is that that's the bottom level. At some point you have to start somewhere. And for teams to get better, they have to play against the teams that have international experience. It might seem wild for like a person who only follows the NHL, but the likes of Thailand, Mongolia and Luxembourg have been playing international competition for decades. And the advantage they have is that, sure, the hockey is very rural, it's very rustic, it's not great. But at the end of the day, the teams that have international experience have the advantage of that experience. And so even when the level is low, if you are built in and baked into that kind of level, you are going to have an advantage over these teams that are coming in with youngsters who are extremely inexperienced. And these sorts of scores are par for the course. But in 10 years' time, it will be Kuwait beating somebody heavily. I believe the Kuwait senior team recently beat the Bahraini team heavily at the Asian Winter Games because Bahrain are even further down in their level of development. Hockey is expensive, and in the current climate it's becoming harder for people to participate even in the sport's hotbed nations. Rinks are closing globally as energy costs rise, so it's important for the sport to continue to grow, be it in Canada or Kuwait. So maybe it would be nice if instead of focusing on the results, we instead focused on the sacrifices the players and staff in nations like Kuwait have to make to get their lads and lasses on the ice. But I also know that that's not going to happen. There will inevitably be more of these articles this year, missing the point, and as a society we would rather knock people down, particularly foreigners, rather than build them up. The only bright spot is that whenever there is one of these dogshit articles, you will get a bunch of comments praising these teams, and I always feel that it's those people, the people who praise these teams, wherever they're from, they're the people that get hockey. But if you just sit there and criticise, I kind of feel sorry for you.